Welcome into the Saturday show here on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Jake Hatch, joined as always by Michelle Bodkin in the co-host chair. Michelle, what's up?
Oh, just enjoying a nice smoggy day.
And, well, sad part is, do we have any weather coming in? I don't think so, so it's only going to get worse. That's the sad part. So I hope you're doing well on this Saturday morning in, smoggy Wasatch Front. But nonetheless, got a lot to cover ahead on today's show. We are going to check in a week out from Utah's bowl game on Northwestern, see where the Wildcats sit. Michelle, you're going to be heading down to Vegas here pretty quick. When are you going down?
I head down Wednesday.
Okay, so you guys spend half a week down there in Sin City covering that for the station, obviously KSLSports.com. Looking forward to that. We got Sarah Hossain, or actually, is it Sarah Fitasimanu now officially, right?
Yeah, it's official. Well, I mean, not legally, but other than that, it's official. Working on it.
You're married,
still.
so that's all that matters. By the way, are we a month into this thing?
A little over a month.
Like, do we hate each other's guts yet? Like, how are we doing on this?
No. We've been together for 4 years, so it's kind of...
You've basically been married.
It's been kind of the same
Fair enough.
motions.
Well, hey, that's actually a good thing in many respects. So a lot to get to ahead on today's show. We're also going to talk a little about the Utah Jazz. We'll talk about the NCAA having their hand forced. The Pac-12 is now run by Washington State and Oregon State. We got a lot to cover. So before we dive into all of that, let's get highlights of the week. So let's start off with you, Michelle.
I think my highlight of the week was getting to check out the Red Rocks last night.
Okay.
That was fun.
I know you're a big gymnastics fan, obviously, and they're looking like they're going to have a pretty good season, even with all of the off the court and off the, I don't know how you want to term it, like everything else that's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I mean, like, it's an exhibition meet, so there's going to be some mistakes, and it's the first time out for everyone, so there's some nerves, but it's like better to get those out there than when it really counts.
Sure.
So, a few things that need to be cleaned up for them, but overall, they really do look like a top team in the country, so it'll be fun to watch them this year.
All right, well, we'll see on that. Sarah, you got a highlight?
I spent most of the week sick.
I was going to say, you've been kind of down and out in a way.
Kind of a low light, but probably the work Christmas party today. I'm excited for it. I haven't had it yet. Like, the highlight has not come yet, but I mean, we're going to Topgolf, which is fun. So I'm glad I'm feeling better enough to do that.
That is true. We are going to hang out at Topgolf after this show, funny enough, and it should be fun. It's always fun to get down and hang out with some of the coworkers. Michelle's got, responsibilities and such.
I have to be responsible. Michelle does not get to go. Michelle will be up at the Huntsman Center.
UVU and Utah, right?
Yeah. Should be a pretty decent game.
This is the third straight in-state game for the Utes, right? Mm-hmm. Because they played, it was
Southern Utah, then BYU,
and now UVU.
Yes.
There's only three that they're playing in-state. Do you have anybody else that we were?
I think that's it.
Okay.
I'm day by day on the schedule.
Sure.
I can't list their schedule.
I'm gonna give props to Utah because BYU's only playing one in-state game this year. They played Utah last week. So I'm a big believer that if you're gonna play these non-conference games for some of the dogs that some of these teams schedule, you can go schedule the Southern Utahs. You can schedule the Weavers.
Save some money.
Yeah, exactly. It's more fan interest if you do that versus bringing in Timbuktu State.
Timbuktu State.
Trust me, there have been some dogs. I've watched some games, both Utah and BYU over the last 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 years that I'm just like, who is this? Like, you look at you're like...
there's always a college, either in out-of-conference or during the tournament, that I'm like, wow, never heard of you before.
Yeah, it's insane. But nonetheless, highlight of my week, Let's see, what I guess just... here's the thing. My daughter is in gymnastics and everything. I've told you guys about this in the past. She finally has her, what do they term it, a back handspring down?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she's far more athletic than I will ever hope to be, and I ever was. It's actually pretty cool to see her doing her thing. So that's been kind of fun to watch her do her thing. But anyways, so we have a lot to cover ahead on today's show. Now, Michelle, I want to start off. Well, Sarah, you want to hit it? Let's get to what's the big deal.
Do you know who I am?
No, I can't say that I do.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. I'm very important. I have many leather-bound books and My apartment smells of rich mahogany.
All right, bowl season begins today, Michelle. Now, the two local bowl games are both next week with Utah State playing in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, and then Utah headed down to Las Vegas for the Las Vegas Bowl. A week out, let's start with the Utes here. How are you feeling about the Utes? You've been up there at practice. They've had 3 availabilities this week. What's the vibe around the football program with double-digit guys entering the transfer portal, some sticking around, some not. Big wins in the transfer portal last night in particular. But what's the vibe right now?
I think it's overall positive. I mean, there is that little air of frustration at just how kind of, I think, chaotic everything is.
It is. Sweet.
But
Who's calling?
a friend. Yeah, better turn off the sound.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's kind of been interesting in that regard, but yeah, I think generally speaking, this is a team that's used to things not necessarily going their way and just not making excuses about it. So like while there maybe is that little bit of irritation with some things, I think overall, the attitude's positive. Everybody's just getting to work. Everybody's happy that they get one more go with each other. And, of course, getting kind of a quick trip before Christmas. So,
okay, on that front, now Bryson Barnes has announced he is going to enter the NCAA transfer portal, but he's going to run it back this one last time with his guys. What's the plan at quarterback? Honestly, is it Barnes and maybe some Brandon Rose? Like, what are we looking at here?
As of what day was that? Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday's availability. Witt said that they were planning on going with Barnes.
Okay.
He did mention that Rose has more or less caught up from all the time that he's missed. So, I mean, that's really impressive and good.
Sure.
So I would assume that maybe we get to see some Brandon Rose, but it does sound like the game plan overall is for Barnes. And, I mean, that makes sense considering he's kind of the one that's been running the show all season. Everybody's used to him. Everybody's in a rhythm with him.
Sure.
And I think it's a little bit of, an appreciation for him because he's done a lot for this program and in situations that for the most part have not been easy to deal with.
Well, and you're right. He's battled through a lot. Like, you talk about the team. Like, they've had seemingly everybody go down injured.
Yeah, basically everybody's been on the injury report at one point or another.
What's the health status for most of these guys? What are we looking team wise? Like, are we looking at? Is it gonna be a severely depleted squad? Like, what are we looking at on that front?
I think it's gonna be more depleted because of guys going to the transfer portal and just deciding to kind of cut ties before the bowl game.
Like they're gone.
Then injuries at this point. It sounds like they're probably the healthiest that they've been all year, which is not great, but I mean, it is what it is. So, at least there's that. They're healthy. They're healthy going into this. So, I don't know what else you say about that.
Well, and that's the interesting part about all this is that I'm looking at this bowl game, and I wish it had more juice to it. Does that make sense? Like, I just wish there were more hype for it. But it's kind of, in a way, it's almost like, I don't know. You have back-to-back seasons where you win the Pac-12, you play in the Rose Bowl, and then you kind of slump backwards in a way, and you're playing in the and there's just like there's not the same fervor, I guess, about what's going on here.
Yeah, it's a lot more casual.
Sure, that's good. That's actually cavalier casual. I like that. Yeah, that's good. That's a good term for it. Yes.
And I get it. I think, at least from my perspective, I'm looking at it as with the amount of injuries they had, it's still pretty dang impressive that they're even bowl eligible because, I mean, we're talking about they got down into 4th and 5th string starters in some places. And, there's kind of this saying that once you get to that point, like, you might as well pack it up and fold it in and call it a year. And they didn't do that. And they were able, to get some good wins and even shockingly stay toe-to-toe with a couple of some of the better teams in that conference. And it was a good year in the Pac-12 conference. So, I know people don't love like participation trophy, but you have to, I mean, if you think about it from like where Utah started their journey in the Pac-12 and they had similar issues kind of towards the beginning of that journey, and it was just a wash. It was like, okay, well, this season's basically over. I think that's where you can kind of really see the growth of the program, and it's impressive when you really stop and think about it from that light.
Okay, so I had to look this up. I was trying to remember. It was 2016 or 2017. It was the last time that Utah. So it's 2017, the Hard Dallas Bowl. That's the last time they won a bowl game.
Yes.
It's just crazy to consider.
I know, it is weird.
Has there been any conversation, people you've talked to, about like getting back into the win column bowl wise? Because there was a long run for Kyle Whittingham as their head coach where they just simply didn't lose bowl games. But it's been 6-7 years now since they actually won one.
Yeah. That's absolutely kind of been, a conversation amongst this team, and a goal I think that they really want to check off. And I think they all kind of know, regardless of whether you guys will be here next year or not, that it sets the team up for a good springboard into the 2024 season.
Sure.
So, and it's been interesting as to, kind of why the slump off on the bowl games. And I think it's Utah has kind of used all their energy to get to the conference championship, and, because they kind of fixed the November slump that they were having for years and years and years, where they'd fall off in November. That got kind of corrected. You make basically four straight trips to the conference championship. You win 2. You get rewarded with bigger, fancier bowl games. The opponent's a little bit harder, and I think it's been trying to find that balance and that juice of kind of maintaining and retaining that energy to kind of have that last push with your bowl game. So this would be a good box for them to check.
Now, there's also a revenge factor at play here.
Yes, there is.
Now, these two schools, speaking of Northwestern and Utah, played in 2018 in that Holiday Bowl. I remember watching it. Utah races out to that lead in the first half. Like, all right.
Yeah, this game's over.
It's over. Sweet. They're right back into the win column. They lost last year, and then
narrator, it was not over.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. Northwestern in the second half comes alive and ends up winning 31-20. Do any of the players that are around today even remember that game? Does it play a role? I know the coaches would remember it, obviously, but do the players, do they have any knowledge of this?
The only guy that would have been on that team that I can think of immediately off the top of my head is Brant Keithy, who obviously won't be playing, but he was on that 2018 team. So he might be in people's ear doing I remember when. We got to get these guys.
Or are they just going to turn and be like, okay, Grandpa?
Probably, yes. It seems like I had thought of one other person like a few days ago, and I'm not drawing who that was. But Brant was on that team in 2018. That was his freshman year. So, that was an interesting game. And I think that was kind of a perfect example of kind of that fizzle. And another weird circumstance, because Utah got to the championship game without Tyler Huntley, without Zach Moss.
That was their first year making it to the Pac-12 title game, right? Yeah.
It was Jason Shelley leading the way, and who was the backup running back? I'm blanking on that at the moment, but I mean, overall did a really, really good job. But I think the wind was taken out of their.
Armand Shine?
Oh, I think it was.
I'm just looking at the roster. Devin Brumfield also would have been. PJ Green, some names from the blast from the past.
I know, right? Names you haven't talked about in a while. But I think the wind in their sails got a little deflated. Close game with Washington in that Pac-12 championship game. And kind of a freaky fluke play was what tipped it in Washington's favor.
Sure.
And of course, as you mentioned, they got off to that hot start in the first half, and then it's like the rain rolled in, and everything just went to hell in a handbasket.
Sure, and that I'm just interested to see how Utah handles this, because you look at it and you're like, okay, it sets up where this is a Northwestern squad that really overachieved this year, all things considered. And we're going to talk with, I think it's Louie Vaccher. He covers the Wildcats. One of the few media members who does, by the way. They have a very small list of actual media members. I'm like, wow, okay. But he's going to join us at 11 o'clock, and we'll get more of his thoughts on where Northwestern sits. But David Braun comes in as the interim head coach. You talk about off-the-field drama and everything. Yeah. And they battled through that. They won 7 games. And I've got to think that if you're looking at just 2 teams and on its head, how you're okay. Northwestern is probably going to be far more fired up for this game because they've overachieved in many ways. Whereas you mentioned kind of Utah, in a way it was a slump. With everything that went on, injury-wise, it's not surprising in this, but it is still a big opportunity, as you mentioned, for Utah. Recapture some of that bowl magic, show you can still win bowl games. And you're right, it's a launching point for next year because this is a team, and I've said it, I'll say it again, they're going to show up at Big 12 Media Days, by the way, in Las Vegas next year.
I know.
And I would
guess who was thrilled about that announcement?
All of us.
This girl.
All of us are excited about that. But nonetheless, they're going to show up to Big 12 Media Days, and I'd be stunned if Utah's not picked as the Big 12 favorite in their first year in the conference. I'll say that right now. Just with the amount of talent returning and everything going on around the program, it feels that way. But the other question I've got for you, Michelle, on this is with regards to this game, are we seeing kind of it feels like some guys, we've already seen the Vacchi and Bishop departures and whatnot. Guys that you would thought maybe they'd consider sticking around to play one more season with Cam and maybe make one more run and what type. Is there a concern that they're losing too many guys from this team that it may affect them going into 2024? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get what I'm picking up what you're putting down. I get what you're saying.
Bill's moving on. Just look at the number of guys that are deciding that not to run it back.
I think ideally you would always like to keep those guys, but I think the coaches, know and understand they have pretty good depth build up in a lot of those places, and they have guys that I think they feel pretty confident that can step up. And I think they feel confident that they can find, a key few plug in play guys from the transfer portal that can kind of help fill in some of those losses. It's yes, but they also still do have quite a few guys returning, guys that aren't quite old enough to move on that have played a lot for them. So I think they still feel pretty good about the amount of returning talent. And obviously every year, you're having to figure out somewhere or in some spot, how do I replace this guy? And Utah's always managed to kind of do it. So I there's always that kind of concern, but I think there's also confidence that they'll be okay.
All right, so how's the transfer portal going? Because I know that John Henry Daly, former BYU defensive end, committed last night. They also got a cornerback out of the transfer portal. What's the recruiting front looking like? Because we're just a few days away from that early signing window. Yeah.
So Witt mentioned on Tuesday that they were going to expect, some of those commitments to start coming down both from the transfer portal and I believe maybe a name or two as well as far as actual commitments.
Okay.
Obviously, they had the tight end from UCLA as well. That's
Carson Ryan, yeah.
That's the local guy.
Tim View, an American Fork product.
Yeah, so he was kind of the one that got the ball rolling this week on the transfer portal commits. And as you mentioned so kindly, when I was on my way to the Huntsman Center, you have Daly and the cornerback commit, and it's well, can't do anything about that.
In my vehicle right now. It's kind of tough to do anything here.
But I think, they're excited about the guys that they kind of have committed. It sounds like there's a few others that are kind of waiting in the wings to say what they're going to do and that they're planning on coming to Utah. But I think at this point they feel pretty good about, the direction that's going. I know fans were kind of hand-wringing because, oh my gosh, all these other teams are picking up all these guys from the portal. What's wrong with Utah? And it's just calm down.
Keenan Johnson is the cornerback's name.
Yes.
I just had to look it up.
Yes. Just calm down. Take a deep breath. Utah's always been a lot more methodical than others, and for various reasons on that front. The names will come, and obviously that started happening this week.
Now, the other interesting part about this, I just saw this come across, by the way. There is another Fuamatu Ma'afala already on the running back train coming up.
Ooh.
Tenari Fuamatu Ma'afala apparently is a class of 2028 running back prospect who got an offer from Utah.
Okay.
Bet you can guess who he's related to.
Chris.
I would assume so.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. It could possibly be Chris's kid.
Yeah, I'm just saying with that last name, I would almost. But like, you look at that and you're like, okay, you feel like, oh, geez, you're feeling like really, really old when you're like, man, Fuamatu Ma'afala, like the second generation's coming already.
I know. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, a lot of these guys, it's now their kids are coming up.
Oh, jeez. Well, we'll continue to talk a little bit more about Utah. We need to talk about the NCAA coming up next. Both Utah and BYU men's basketball affected by essentially what the NCAA did yesterday. It's funny in a way, but at the same time, it's the NCAA just kind of like shooting themselves in the foot and expecting everybody to feel pity for them, I guess, in a way also.
None felt.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But we'll talk about that next. This is the Saturday Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful time of
Welcome back to the Saturday Show. This is a great pick, by the way, Sarah. You going Christmas all day today?
For sure.
Good. Good, because you and I both produce shows that certain hosts aren't the biggest fan of Christmas
They're Scrooges,
music.
yeah.
I am not the biggest fan of Christmas music, but I can handle this.
Michelle Bodkin, come on now.
I'm just very picky and particular about my Christmas music.
Okay, I can understand
Not
that.
all of it's good.
Well, and it gets old.
Yes.
No offense.
It
like
does.
some people say it doesn't. It does when you hear the same song over and songs over and over.
There's only so many times I can listen to like different versions of Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, okay? Like, you can't make that song any more interesting than what it is.
And that's why you can't start playing it until like I'm okay with like end of November.
Have I told you guys what I grew up with, by the way?
What did you grow up with?
My mom, my mom was a music teacher for years. I grew up hearing Christmas music in the middle of Bloody July. Like, I should like abhor Christmas music. I love it. Like, you get to November 1, I'm all over. Let's go.
Yeah, I had roommates playing Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You in like August.
No.
And I was like, see, no.
I don't allow that. I'm not like I said, my mom, I grew up, she was getting ready for Christmas season, like in her music stuff, and she'd be listening to stuff in July. And I'd wake up some mornings and I'd be like, it's 105 degrees outside, Mom. Why are you playing? It's the most wonderful time of the year.
That's funny. See, like I like the crooners. So like Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, Rosemary Clooney. Like, yeah, that's my jam. That feels so Christmassy to me.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So obviously it's the Christmas season.
I know. Next
9 days away,
week, basically.
Jeez. Well, if you haven't shipped your
Next
packages
weekend.
by now, good luck to you. You're gonna be paying a pretty penny to get them wherever they need to go. It's not like I'm in the post office all of a sudden.
Thank goodness my family all lives here.
It's true. Well, most of it. So, all my family lives in driving distance outside of my sister, who's up in Idaho. By the way, just had her first kid.
Aww.
So, baby Honey is her name.
Honey.
So, yep. She's very cute.
Oh my goodness.
Got a very cute niece.
Which she's gonna have to be introduced to the movie Honey when she gets older.
She will be. I'm
With
sure.
Jessica Alba.
Yep, absolutely. it will happen, no doubt. But nonetheless, so. Outside of that, really, my wife's family, most of them are here. And the ones that aren't living here are all coming here for Christmas. So it makes it real simple on my side of things, like in terms of having to get stuff to everybody. Nonetheless, so hope you guys are having a fantastic Christmas season, a lot of stuff going on. But Michelle, the NCAA got dealt a pretty big blow yesterday, which is going to maybe cramp their Christmas a little bit because they had a legal briefing come down essentially that says there's a temporary restraining order placed on the NCAA from enforcing any bans on two-time transfers or multi-time multi-time transfers in college basketball. And the original thought was it was a 14-day restraining order. The next hearing is going to be on December 27th, and they were going to essentially either uphold that restraining order or they were going to revisit it. Now, there was back and forth legal wrangling between lawyers, as there often is, and the NCAA essentially has backed down and said, you know what? Okay, for this year, if you're a multi-time transfer, two-time transfer, you can play without penalty. It still counts versus eligibility. That will still be in effect, but that affects both BYU and Utah men's basketball because both of them had a high-profile player who'd been on the sidelines because of the NCAA not making a move. Now, in the case of Davon Smith for Utah, he had already had his ruled on, but he was ruled to be ineligible, correct?
Yeah, they denied his waiver.
Or denied it, sure, yeah.
Utah was in the process of appealing it when all this came down. And obviously, I mean, it's been an absolute roller coaster of emotions just throughout the whole process. This Davon Smith transferred into the program, believing that he would be able to play because, I mean, by the NCAA's rule, he should have been eligible to get that waiver because he fit the description of what they constitute as exceptions to the rule. And then they take forever to review the case and then decide, I think it was like late November, denied. And so, then it turns into, okay, well, we're going to appeal it because we don't understand why this was denied in the first place. And then as Davon's getting a truck, his choice of a truck or a Jeep on Wednesday, it's coming down that 14-day stay was going to be put into place. So it's like, oh, and by the way, Davon, you get to play now.
You can play for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll see beyond that.
But then, the next day while they're at practice, then it changed, and it turned into well, if you play and the ruling gets reversed, then we're going to nail you.
Sure.
So
but in the ruling, the judge threw down that the NCAA, there's no retroactive penalties able to be enforced by the NCAA at all.
Yeah.
They said, don't you dare try and come.
So then in the next 24 hours, it changed again. And on top of that, now it's, free to go for the year. So, that's just a lot to put someone through.
Sure.
And that Davon's not the only one that fits the description of what I just laid out there. There are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of student athletes that were put through a similar ringer as Davon.
Well, and so on the BYU side of things, Marcus Adams, he's been sitting on the sideline. Now, he hasn't been healthy for a significant portion of the early part of the season. He had a foot/ankle injury that had him on the sideline, but he's just kind of sitting there waiting. And BYU's been saying, we're just waiting. We're just he's on the docket of cases the NCAA needs to rule on. He never actually got word back. I asked Mark Pope, this was going back, so it would have been the week before the Utah game. I don't even remember who they played. That's how bad BYU's non-conference slated games has been, it feels like. Just in terms of the nameless, faceless opponents. They've absolutely dominated. I don't know, it was, I don't know who it was, Evansville. It was Jerry Sloan's alma mater. But after that game, I asked him, have you heard anything back from the NCAA on Marcus Adams? Because at that point, we didn't have any of this going down yet. He said, we've had preliminary word back, but we haven't had anything official, and we're just kind of sitting here waiting. Now, with both of these players, they're both high-level players. Now, Davon Smith is a far more accomplished player at the collegiate level, having done what he's done for Georgia Tech in his career. I saw last night, as soon as it came down, that he was all cleared. The dunk he had, and he's got hops. Like, kid's talented.
Utah's already changed their game quite a bit from the past 2 seasons.
Sure.
Davon has the potential to change it once again. Just him and what he's able to do. So...
Yeah, so, and now from that perspective, are you expecting him to essentially enter the lineup and be one of their top 5? Like, what are you truthfully expecting from him at this point? Because they've played 11 games now for Utah in the season, or 10. I don't remember how many they've played on the season. Like, you're a third of the way through the season, and you have a pretty good core of guys out. You and I were both at that game between BYU and Utah last week. I thought that Gabe Madsen was absolutely incredible. Brandon Carlson, there was the rumor about him. Is he able to play? Is he not able to play? Comes out and played a pretty phenomenal game. Utah overall played a phenomenal game, shutting down an otherwise powerful BYU squad. So, a third of the way through the season, you get this high-level transfer eligible now. What can he truthfully do for Utah, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, Craig Smith has said that they've been trying to keep him in the mix without him being like a distraction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Kind of doing what Utah was trying to do with Cam Rising and the quarterbacks, but I think Craig probably managed that a little bit better.
Avoiding saying, we're a couple of weeks away from a couple of weeks. Yeah.
I think did a little bit of a better job just managing that, making sure that he's in the playbook, gets some practice time, gets a little bit of feel with those guys, but not so much so that the game plan revolves around him. And then if he's not eligible to play, then you're trying to plug someone else in that hasn't had, the experience or whatever through the week. I think they'll probably test him off the bench would be my assumption, just because of the short notice. And then from there, I don't know what they're going to maybe want to do. Are they going to continue to use him off the bench? Are they going to eventually work him into the starting lineup and move someone else to the bench? But I think they have some options and flexibility there with that.
Well, and that's what I would have, if they were asking me, and they're never going to ask me, but that's what I would have been advocating for them to do, is essentially just kind of
see where he's at.
Yeah, see what he can contribute, honestly. And that, I think that's a similar case with what Marcus Adams has going for BYU. Now, Marcus is a true freshman. He's been at 3 schools, and he's only just recently enrolled in college. He's had a very curious run so far. He originally committed and signed with Kansas, was at Kansas, decided to leave, went to Gonzaga, never actually enrolled, and then comes to BYU and actually enrolls. So it's been a kind of a crazy whirlwind experience for him. And in the case for a guy like Marcus Adams, is I'm kind of like you with Davon Smith, is you just kind of say, okay, let's put him out there for a short stint, see where he's at. Is he just treading water, trying to get his bearings about him, or is he actually right in the middle of this? Because a guy like Marcus Adams, he's a top 50 recruit.
Yeah,
he was number 47 in the I think it was 24/7 Sports rankings for high school basketball. This is a kid last year, Michelle, that made 11 3-pointers in one game, had 50 points, 21 rebounds at Narbonne High School, which plays in the greater LA area, and it's a high level. This kid's got star potential written all over him. A 4-star prospect, and BYU fans are justifiably excited to finally have a chance to see him. I think from Utah's perspective, they see those highlights from Davon Smith. They're like, let's go. Let's throw him out there and see what he's doing. But I've got this feeling that now that you're already a third of the way, essentially, for both of these squads, that you have a pretty good rotation. And both these teams are very good, by the way. BYU ranked 18th. Utah getting votes in the polls. If they continue to win, there's very theoretically a chance they're ranked by the time Pac-12 play begins. We'd have 2 top 25 teams here locally. Now, I'm not even discounting Utah State, who's 10-1.
Yeah.
Danny Sprinkles just got Utah State rolling. So college hoops is really, really fun right now here locally. But just I've got this thought in my head of, okay, you have these 2 high-level guys. Are you going to disrupt everything you've done so far in the name of essentially kind of like forcing them into the lineup?
Nah, I think you're careful about it. And like I said, they may prove and do enough that you make that change.
You're forced to do it, yeah.
But I think you test it out first. I think that's what smart coaches do. Unless you've seen something in practice that absolutely gives you the confidence to go there. But But when you're dealing with someone that you're not even sure if they're ever going to be eligible to play, I have my doubts that you feel quite that confident.
Yeah, and that's a very good point you make there, is that there's a big opportunity just to kind of see where they're at, because it's still like you're not. Let's just say this was a week like that. This all came down in the middle of conference play. Let's say that Utah was going to Arizona to play that game.
Yeah,
like, are you really going to be like, you know what, Davon, we're going to just throw you out there?
Feed you to the wolves.
You're risking a chance that you all of a sudden your team gets disrupted by all that. It's a similar circumstance. I'm interested to see how all these programs, I'm speaking of just the locals with BYU and Utah, but this even goes to a higher level just across the country, because there's 362 Division I basketball programs, and I would say the majority of them had transfer, if not transfers, that joined the programs, and various circumstances that they all ended up coming to these schools that they're playing for. I'm just very curious how these coaches go about this. And by the way, the other thing about this is how the NCAA is going to handle this going forward as well. Will they continue to take the PR hit by, as you mentioned, like with the guy Davon Smith? It seems like it's a kind of a cut and dry, like, okay, he seems like he should be eligible right away. But they're going to, no. Like, we're denying that. The NCAA can't get out of its own way sometimes.
Not sometimes, always.
Good point.
It's the things that they decide and think that they're going to power flex on just baffles me. That just felt like an instance of cutting your nose to spite your face.
Sure.
I mean, seriously. You have, a guy, and I'm positive he's not the only one. You have athletes that fit the description of your own rules, and then you have the audacity to turn around and deny those waivers is beyond weird to me, just to prove a point. And that feels like that's all that the NCAA is concerned about. But they pick the stupidest things to try and prove a point with. If you want to be the tough guy and lay the hammer down, then maybe do something about NIL and the transfer portal.
Well, that's a good point in and of itself. By the way, what was the reaction earlier this week for Utah? And so they announced that it's either you can pick it from a Jeep or the Ram 1500s, correct?
Yeah.
For the men's and women's basketball programs as well as the Red Rocks.
Gymnastics, yep.
Pretty cool stuff.
So
what
cool.
was the reaction? What was that all like?
You know what? I think everybody was really excited about that, and rightfully so, right? And I think especially the women's teams.
Yeah.
That's, a huge, huge NIL deal. And that's something that you always kind of expect like football to get. But to turn around and make that available for some of your women's sports teams that have been high performing and doing really well is major. And I think it sends a really good message that hopefully other schools will adopt. And I think it comes at a really great time in women's sports. You have gymnastics that keeps breaking records for viewership of their national championships. And you have women's basketball that all of a sudden you have these superstars that everybody's talking about. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, obviously Alyssa Peely is now really inserting herself into that conversation. So to kind of turn around and reward some of these athletes for the contributions that they're giving to your university by putting them on the map in other ways outside of football, I think is a huge, huge deal.
Well, and that's the other thing about it is you're right. With the NIL sphere right now, you need to get as many things as you can for these athletes because, honestly, the NIL aspect helps the current student athletes, but what does it also do?
Recruiting.
It attracts.
Recruiting, baby.
It attracts people, and they're like, hey, hold on. Utah's giving away what?
If I come to play, they'll set me up with a car that will be good for the environment I'm entering into because a lot of these kids come from places where snow is not an issue, and they're not necessarily driving cars that are appropriate for the weather here. So that's kind of a big deal.
It is, and it's one of those interesting things. And I'm just curious where this continues to go because you're right. The NCAA, getting back to the original point, they pick really weird things to make stands on, and other things they're like, well, I'm just going to hands off.
Hands off, not touching that.
That's the one to buckle down on versus over here.
Well, yeah, if you're trying to convince us all that you're tough, that's what you go after, not some poor kid that didn't find the right fit at the last school they were at.
Yeah, I don't know. It's always curious how all of this gets handled, but at the same time, the NCAA sure just decides to shoot themselves in the foot more often than not. It's kind of an interesting part. All right, we will come back on the other side, though. We'll get to technical fouls, talk about some of the things in sports that outside of the NCAA also still suck. We'll talk about all that next. This is the Saturday Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If you're coming from the street with dirty shoes on your feet, that's a technical foul. If you switch the radio to some modern music show, that's a technical foul. If you touch the thermostat,
you'll get hit with a bat.
'cause that's a technical foul.
You will feel my wrath.
That's a technical foul.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
A technical foul.
welcome back to the Saturday show. Sorry, you always time stuff out. It's always fun as a radio host to do that. All right, time for technical fouls, where we talk about things in the sports world that have, I guess, grind our gears, make us angry, or just downright stupid. Honestly, that's what this is all about. I'm gonna have you go first this week, Michelle, because I think you got a good one cooked up for us here.
Yeah, I'm going to kick a hornet's nest.
Ooh, let's go.
I hope I don't.
We like this.
I hope I don't regret that. Technical foul to the Gymternet. You guys are abhorrent.
Ooh.
Let's just start there.
What happened here?
So, I mean, obviously, we know everything that's gone down with Tom Farden, Utah Gymnastics.
Very messy, but also sad situation in a way.
Yes. And here's the thing. The court of public opinion's very odd. And people can make up their minds about a situation without fully knowing all the details. And that's about as far as I will go on that.
Fair.
But as a result, because minds have been made up in a certain way, this gymnastics team is just getting attacked for anything and everything they are saying. Girls have gone death threats from these psychos. You read the comments in any story that's written about them, how awful and terrible these girls are, that they're horrible teammates, and simply because they're maybe expressing that they had a very different experience than someone else did. And here's the thing. Reality can be more than one thing at the same time.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you're jumping on the bandwagon of believing victims of abuse. And that's a great thing because that needs to happen more. However, turning around and being abusive back to someone else does not help that situation. So get your together and knock it off.
So are they're being attacked essentially because they spoke out in favor of Farden? Is that what it's like? I'm trying to get the angle that people are attacking them over this.
So Tuesday we had an availability with Miley, Abby, and Jaden.
Okay.
And they they talked about how hard it was to see Tom leave.
Got it.
And that they are trying to approach the season as how would Tom want us to handle this?
Got it. Okay.
And some people took real issue with that.
Okay.
And like I said, I mean, threats, just saying really incredibly mean things. And again, I get it. I get being on the side of, alleged victims of abuse.
Sure.
But don't turn around and start abusing other people. It makes your stance a moot point.
Got it. Okay. That makes more sense. I was just trying to get a feel for which angle people were taking. And you're right. Keyboard warriors are the lowest of the low, it feels like.
And they are.
All right. Sarah, what do you got for us this week?
So I feel like this is an obvious one. But Draymond Green obviously deserves multiple technical fouls to the point where the NBA suspended him indefinitely for his fouls. So
if you didn't see it, I don't know how you couldn't have seen it by now. He has this spinning backhand he delivers to the face of Yusuf Nurkic. Claimed he was trying to free himself and sell a foul, but sorry, Draymond, you don't get the benefit of the doubt no more. And now, by the way, the conversation around him has completely changed. Like you got Steve Kerr, his head coach, who's like, "Oh, that's just Draymond being Draymond." He's like, "Well, now he's got this. Stop defending this guy.
Stop making excuses."
He's second all time in NBA history in being thrown out of a game. You know, number one, Rasheed Wallace. Like, Rasheed. when people are talking about, I saw there was a tweet, I retweeted it. Rasheed's got to be there the night that Draymond gets thrown out when he breaks his record. Rasheed Wallace was thrown out 29 times in an NBA game. Draymond has reached 20 now, so he still has a ways to go to reach what Rasheed did. But this is not good because Draymond, you're right, Sarah. He's suspended indefinitely. The interesting part will be for me, and I want your thought on this, Sarah, is that if he is cleared in time to play, Christmas Day, that's going to look really, really bad on the NBA's part because that's not an indefinite suspension, a guy who's being told you need to go to counseling and this type of stuff. That's just them trying to cover their bases and then yet again letting him off with a relative slap on the wrist.
Yeah, it takes longer he has obvious issues, and those issues are going to take longer than a couple weeks or less than that to fix.
Yeah.
So it will definitely be a bad look if he comes back sooner than even, I think he should be done for the rest of the season. And I could maybe see next season him coming back. Okay, he went through some months of therapy, anger management maybe. Maybe he gets a chance, but I don't know. If it's any sooner than that, it feels too soon.
We'll see. It's just, I don't know. You look at it, and Draymond Green has made the most of what he could do in the NBA. He's made $1 gazillion. He's won multiple NBA titles. He's a Hall of Famer, but he continues to be just this crony on the court. It's stop it, dude. And
maybe he shouldn't come back. Maybe this is your sign to retire, be done, hang it up.
And here's the other thing about this: Golden State. Guess what? They're falling off a cliff right now. And we'll see if they can recover from this. But really, the guys around Steph Curry, Draymond, Klay Thompson, the guys who built Golden State into what they are, they've all statistically have fallen off a cliff. The era of Golden State's dynasty may be dying right in front of us.
Well, I mean, all good things come to an end.
They do. And by the way, we also need to give a technical foul to two teams in the NBA. The Detroit Pistons started the season 2-1. Their record now is 2-24.
Oof.
2-23. They've lost 22 straight games.
Oof.
They set a franchise record in the process. And oh, by the way, the team that has the number 1 overall pick and got Big Victor Wembanyama? Yeah, the Spurs, they lost, I think there was a franchise record 18 straight. So, way to go, guys.
Slow claps for you.
Good job to all y'all. All right, before we go here, last one from me. You guys know that I do RSL coverage for the station here, and I like watching soccer. Major League Soccer made one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen in my entire life yesterday.
Oh boy.
So we have what we call the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. It's an opportunity for semi-pro all the way up to top pro teams, like MLS teams, to play in a cup competition to win. They play it during the middle of the Major League Soccer season. MLS teams have been a part of it. It's got 105 years of history, Michelle. And yesterday, without really anybody getting any heads up on this, Major League Soccer announces that all of their clubs, all of their top-tier clubs, so Real Salt Lake included, will not participate in the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup next year. They've withdrawn themselves from the competition.
Okay.
Instead, they're going to let their MLS Next Pro team, so in this case, it'd be the Real Monarchs, who are the RSL's minor league affiliate, they will be participating in this instead of Real Salt Lake. This is dumb for a myriad of reasons because this is a competition that is supposed to allow the small minnows, quote unquote, to go up against the big sharks and have a chance on an equal playing field. Like we have seen multiple semi-pro outfits make runs where they've actually ended up taking on Major League Soccer teams. Mm-hmm. This is a model based off of what they call the FA Cup in England, where the Premier League goes up against teams from like the 8th tier in English football. This is the idea of Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, any of those top-tier EPL teams saying, yeah, we're not playing in the FA Cup anymore.
Right.
Screw that. You got 100-plus years of history? Yeah, whatever. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Major League Soccer? Like, don't do this. This is dumb, like I said, for a myriad of reasons. But just the optics of it, you're saying, we're too good for that competition. We're out. Like, what are you doing? Grow up. I
guess they're trying to be like the NCAA and flex a weird muscle.
I don't know. Soccer already has an uphill climb here in the United States to really gain mainstream popularity, and especially Major League Soccer. Trust me, the English Premier League has made major inroads. Like there are people, thousands, if not millions, who tune in every Saturday and Sunday morning to watch their EPL teams that won't watch Major League Soccer because it's perceived to be a lesser than product. And yes, it is not on the same level, but if you want soccer on your home turf to grow, you got to support it. And for Major League Soccer to say, that competition's got 105 years of history, poo-poo on that, we're not participating. It's like, what are you doing?
Come on.
Like Don Garber, the commissioner, he's got a lot to answer for on that front. It seems very, very myopic and short-sighted, but what do I know? I'm just a blowhard on the radio here in Salt Lake City. What do you have to say, Sarah?
You make a good point.
It's just the thing. You want this sport to grow. By the way, the World Cup's coming here in 2026. Why are you doing this when you have the biggest soccer competition in the world coming your way? And by the way, they said we're going to reevaluate after the 2024
and
season.
And they gained so much momentum with Messi coming here, and the Beckham documentary, I feel like, helped gain a lot of momentum, and you're stifling
put
all
away.
that in the trash.
Yeah. It just seems short-sighted and myopic. It's just, what are you guys doing? And there's still maybe a chance they could reverse course on this, and I hope they do, because it's a fun competition, because it literally allows you Sarah, in theory, you could take you and a group of friends, you and Michelle could get together and say, we want to create a team, and you guys could make a run and potentially play against the likes of Real Salt Lake. That's what the glory of this competition was.
I have not played soccer since 9th grade, so I don't think anybody wants to watch that.
I'm just saying, it's in theory.
But in theory, yes. Yeah. Great theory. Great theory.
It's just one of those things. I just look at it, I'm like, what are you doing?
Let's do it, Michelle.
Oh, I guess I
haven't played since high school as well.
Somebody who never played at all in any organized league growing up right here.
Well, I guess we need to start practicing then if we're going to do this thing.
All right. We will come back on this side. We're going to look into Northwestern. That's coming up next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Let's check in with the Northwestern Wildcats as they get ready a week out from facing the Utah Utes in the Las Vagas Bowl. Louie Vaccher from Wildcat Report, part of the Rivals Network, joins Michelle and I here on the program. Louie, thanks for taking the time. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's start here. Pretty incredible season, all things considered, for Northwestern. They go 7-5. David Braun, who was the interim, has that interim tag lifted. Just give us a sense for your perception of how the overall season has played out to this point for the Wildcats.
Oh, I think they've far exceeded anybody's expectations to start the year. You know, they had the hazing scandal over the summer. They fired Pat Fitzgerald. There's lawsuits swirling everywhere. Some people leave the program. I mean, it looked like a disaster. The over-under for wins was 2.5. And David Braun, who, never been a head coach before, had no FBS experience, comes in and just did a miracle job. They really had a heck of a season. I think the turning point was a win over Minnesota in September, where they had a 31-10 deficit in the fourth quarter, came back and won in overtime, and that kind of flipped their season. And they closed with 3 straight wins. To be sitting here at 7-5 and going to a bowl game, I think is just far beyond, even the purplest of Northwestern's fans' wildest dreams. I don't think they would have thought this season was coming. So yeah, it's been a heck of a ride for Northwestern fans.
So, I mean, I know kind of what I was thinking and feeling over the summer as these reports were coming out about Northwestern, from the comfort of Salt Lake City, thousands of miles away. I'm wondering, as someone that's more in the thick of it, what was going through your mind as these reports were coming out, and how aware were you beforehand that something was maybe going on?
Oh, there was zero awareness. I mean, it was an unbelievable situation. First of all, it was awful. As someone covering the program, it was, I never used the word alleged many times in my life over those couple weeks, and all these lawsuits coming out. And, Pat Fitzgerald was a revered figure. You're talking about one of the greatest players ever had, the all-time winningest coach. Everybody loved the guy, and, he did things the right way, but there were things going on in the program no one had any idea about. And so it was a shock to see him get fired. And Really, everything looked to be falling apart, and it was an embarrassing scandal. I think a lot of people put their purple away, fans and stuff that were kind of ashamed of the whole thing. And that's why this season you talk about a dream kind of scenario, is a best-case scenario. And, on top of it this summer, too, I think the NU administration looked really bad, and the way they handled it was awful. And so, to have them, they hired David Braun, which no one really knew, and he turned out to be a heck of a coach. I don't think they had any idea he'd have this kind of season. And now things are really looking up. They have a coach they like in place, and, he'll have to develop a little bit on the job, but things are, looking up, I think, again, for Northwestern football, and certainly much better than they were in July.
Louie, what's the excitement level from Northwestern fans in terms of making it to a bowl game and heading to Vegas to take on the Utes?
Yeah, I think people are excited. Like I said, I don't think anybody foresaw any kind of bowl game, so this is a bonus, and they hadn't been in a couple years. Mm-hmm. They haven't been in the bowl since 2000. They had 2 dreadful years. Coming off, they were 3-9 in 2021. They went 1-11 in 2022. So I don't think, anybody saw this coming at all. Even taking the whole coaching situation, a hazing scandal out, I don't think anybody would have thought that they'd be in a bowl game. I don't know how many people will travel. Northwestern doesn't draw a lot of fans, and now, especially this year, there were a lot of people ticked off at the administration and the way Fitz was fired and things like that. So attendance, which is always a challenge, was down a little bit. But typically, Northwestern travels pretty well for bowl games because they do have a national alumni base. So it'll be interesting to see how many people they draw out there. I'm not really sure about how many people are going, but fans in general, I think they're excited to be in any kind of a bowl this year.
Tell me, what is it, do you think, about Coach Braun that's allowed him to have the kind of success he's had? Are there any specific characteristics or anything kind of along those lines that have made him really effective in handling kind of some chaos and weathering the storm?
Yeah, I think, number one, he had an incredible connection with the players, and that was from the outset. I mean, they picked him to take over, and this is a guy that just got the job. He was hired to be a defensive coordinator last January, and then in July, Pat Fitzgerald gets fired, and they wanted David Braun to take over. And I think that says a lot about who he is and how the players felt about him. He's just such a genuine, earnest guy. He's no nonsense. He's a very easy guy to talk to, and he connects with the players, and they believe in him. And, he did everything, even over the summer and in the first weeks and then through camp. It was all about supporting the players that are going through this adversity and these difficult times, and just trying to keep that locker room together. And he managed to keep them. I mean, they just been focused on the game. I don't think any team in America was more looking forward to the start of the season, to put everything behind them and just get back to playing football. And he managed to keep them focused week to week with all this stuff going around. And, it really galvanized the locker room a little bit. They had a little bit of a us against the world mentality. And as the season went on, they got better and better. And I think they were playing their best football at the end of the season.
Now, they've played 2 different quarterbacks. Ben Bryant, he's a transfer from Cincinnati, and then Brendan Sullivan also having played. What's the quarterback situation going into the bowl game?
Yeah, Ben Bryant is the starter. I mean, when he's healthy, he's number one, and they're fortunate to have an experienced backup like Brendan Sullivan, especially nowadays when very, very few people have experienced quarterbacks because they all leave town if they don't get the starting job. But Bryant is the guy. He's this is his 6th year. He started the last 3 years at Eastern Michigan, at Cincinnati, and then at Northwestern. He's got a lot of football under him. He's just a very steady veteran presence. He knows where the ball is supposed to go. He gets rid of it. Just a very smart quarterback. He's not going to wow anybody with a big arm, but he can make all the throws, and he's their leader, no question about it. And they're a different team with him behind center, no doubt about it.
Utah obviously has some injuries that have kept some guys out this year. They also have had some guys hit the transfer portal. What is Northwestern looking like on that front?
Yeah, they've had one guy enter the transfer portal, Josh Preeb, who's a starting guard. He's been the starter for a couple years now, so that's a big hit to the offensive line because they've struggled this year. The offensive line is probably the biggest weakness, I would say, on the team. They didn't have much of a running game, and they also gave up, I think it was 48 sacks on the year, which is, I think, fourth worst in FBS football this year. So that's going to be a loss. But other than that, they haven't. They've had a few other players that weren't really on the depth chart and didn't get a whole lot of action. So they're in pretty good shape. Health-wise, I don't think there's anything new either. So I know it's funny because Utah, you look at this game and you'd think Utah would be the favorite, but boy, I don't know who's playing for the Utes. There's so many guys that left.
We don't know either. We actually work here.
Yeah, and they got a quarterback who's playing, but he's in the portal, and all these receivers left, and it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, and that's just the reality of college football now in the bowl season. That's just the way it is.
Louie Vaccher joining us. He obviously covers at Northwestern now. Louie, with regards to the future for Northwestern in the Big Ten, I know that they're building a new stadium there for Northwestern in Evanston. Where do you see Northwestern's, place in this new look Big Ten? Because you have the 4 teams from the Pac-12 entering the conference here. What's it going to look like for Northwestern moving forward?
Yeah, it's going to get a whole lot tougher for Northwestern. I don't think there's any question about that. And they do have a new stadium. They're looking to break ground on soon. It's $800 million. It's going to be beautiful. And they've got a great facility, one of the best in the country, too. But, I think they appeared in 2 Big Ten championship games in the last 5 years, in 2018 and 2020. But that was a lot because they were in the West Division. The Big Ten West is, defense, offensively challenged programs with, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Nebraska. Now that goes away. You add Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, it's going to get a whole lot tougher. I mean, I don't think, they're not going to see Indianapolis again for quite a while, if ever. I mean, it's going to be really hard to break into the top 2 to get to the Big Ten championship game. And, just those, you got 4 really good programs coming in, and they lose that kind of safe place they had there in the Big Ten West. So, yeah, it's there's no question about it. It's going to be a whole lot tougher for Northwestern to compete going forward.
Looking ahead to this game, what do you think are going to be the key matchups between Utah and Northwestern that will sway the game in favor of one over the other?
Yeah, I think Northwestern is going to be all about protecting Ben Bryant, and that's going to be a challenge. Utah does get after the quarterback. Mr. Ellis is, I think he had, 12 sacks this year. He was one of the top guys in college football. They don't have much of a running game. They didn't really run the ball with any consistency. It would pop up here and there, but it wasn't anything that could control the clock, control the game. So it's going to be all about Ben Bryant in the passing game and whether they can protect him. And I think defensively, Northwestern plays they play kind of a shell defense. They'll play cover 4. They'll keep their safeties back in the back end and just keep everything in front of them and force you to, if you're going to score on them, they want you to go 10, 12, 15 plays or something like that. That's kind of the way they play. Take away the big play and make you earn it. And they've been pretty solid. There's no question the defense is Northwestern's strength of their team without a doubt. So I think it'll be a low-scoring game. And, again, with Utah, there's so many question marks. I'm not sure what to expect out of them. And so many times you don't know how teams – I mean, Northwestern is thrilled to be playing in a bowl game. They're going to be ready to go. They've got their team intact, and they're 7-5. It's not a powerhouse football team or anything, but they'll be ready to go. They're excited to play in a bowl game, and a lot of teams maybe not. And I don't know where Utah's head is, especially with all of these guys that have left the program, and you got a quarterback who's in the portal that's going to be playing, and it's just a weird situation. So I'm not really sure what to expect, to be honest.
Now, Northwestern's got 2 linebackers that have 100 tackles on the season. It's rare in these days to even see one guy on a team have 100-plus tackles. This defense seems to really get after it, though.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, like I said, the defense is the strength of the team. They've got 2 very active linebackers. Bryce Gallagher led the team in tackles, he's a captain. He's a leader. He's been there for a long time, and he's the unquestioned leader of that defense. Makes a lot of tackles. He's more of the in-the-box guy that makes a lot of plays between the tackles. And then Xander Mueller is the other one, and he makes a lot of big plays. He led the team in tackles for loss this year. They like to send him on blitzes. He was one of their top. They're one of their leaders in sacks as well. And then their secondary, they got a couple really good safeties. They like to play 5 D-backs a lot back there. So they've got 3 really good safeties, and Coco Azuma and Devin Turner and Rod Hurd. Guys that have played a lot of football. They're veterans back there, and that's the strength of the unit, no question.
All right, so I got one other question for you here, Louie, and that's these two programs do have some history together. They played in that Holiday Bowl, and it was kind of a tale of two halves in many respects when they took on one another. Does Northwestern have any, I know with the new coaching staff, turnover rosters and all that, is there really any feel between these two teams because of that game at all that you're aware of?
Well, that was 5 years ago. I mean, there's a couple guys that were on the roster, I believe, but they weren't playing or anything like that. And that was a wild game. I mean, that was a heck of so. 2018 was a phenomenal season for Northwestern. They got to the Big Ten title game. They won the West, and they got out there, and I think it was 20-3 at halftime, and they scored 4 touchdowns in the third quarter. That was a crazy game, and that's a great memory, I think, for all Northwestern fans. And, these two teams have played 3 times in history all time. I think it was like in the 20s and in 1981 and then in 2018. So, I mean, there's not a lot of history there. There's not a lot of familiarity. But like I said, I think Northwestern fans are, and the players, the whole program, I think, is just excited to be playing in a bowl game. And, they're happy to be there for sure.
Well, Louie, cannot thank you enough for taking some time to join us here on the show. We're looking forward to the game, and obviously we'll be in touch to get you on probably throughout this upcoming week as the game gets a little bit closer, all right?
Sounds great, guys. Well, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. There you go. Louie Vaccher, he covers Northwestern for Wildcat Report, part of the Rivals Network, and I kind of got the same feel that, this is a Northwestern fan base and team that, you know what? We overachieved this year. Let's go celebrate a little bit. And that's it stands kind of in contrast to Utah, where it's like, okay, well, we're here.
I mean, look, I get it. I get it. Yeah. It's and I don't think either side is wrong for how they feel. No.
Let me be very clear. I'm not trying to denigrate what right. Utah, they're coming off 2 Rose Bowl appearances.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, it is hard to get excited for the Las Vagas Bowl, and I think they're doing a good job of finding and picking out things to kind of focus on that does make it exciting. But it is also just a very different feel than it has been the last couple of years. And like I said, I understand it. I get it. I even kind of feel that way. It's a very, very different thing. But I think there is at least understanding that there's still value here.
Sure.
So it's going to be interesting, though, to see what that ultimately looks like out on the field next Saturday.
Yeah, it'll be a fun game all the same. It's Vegas. It's the Allegiant Stadium there. Here's the thing. You want to really, if this was still in the Sam Boyd Stadium, I'd be like, I don't blame you for wanting to check out at all, because trust me, Sam Boyd, man.
Ooh, man, they would just turn the music up and that press box would start rattling. It was a little nerve-wracking. I was like, we're all going to just come tumbling down on everyone, huh?
Yeah, no doubt. We'll see how it goes. I am very interested to see how obviously the Utes handle this. It sounds like Northwestern's up for it, and as they should be, because everybody, and trust me, I was like, when that whole thing went down, well, there goes Northwestern season.
Yeah, that just seemed like a very impossible hurdle to overcome. But you know what? We here in Salt Lake should probably know a little bit better than that.
We should, but it's too easy just to be like, they're done. And that it's sad to say, because you want to think, okay, but when situations like that really kind of come right when the season's about to begin, you're like, I don't know how any team's going to rally from this. And by the way, that's a big credit to David Braun for being able to step in. Because as Louie points out, he didn't have any FBS experience. He was a defensive coordinator at North Dakota State, and awesome to see him kind of get to rally the troops, so to say, and get them rolling.
Yeah, I mean it's a great success story, and hopefully that continues. Hopefully it's a sign that he's a good coach for him and a good fit, and that this wasn't just like a weird, fluky, well, everybody kind of rallied around this thing, and now that this thing is no longer a thing, it falls apart. Mm-hmm. They're going to be fascinating to watch for a little while, in my opinion.
They will be. And the other thing about it is it's going to be curious. Like I asked them that question about how they fit into the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. This is a very high-level academic school competing in one of the preeminent conferences. It's like, man, you got an uphill climb, honestly.
I mean, it's you kind of look at Stanford.
Yeah.
It's both of these programs have had their kind of moment in the sun where they've been pretty dang good.
Duke just this past season, past 2 seasons under Mike Elko, they've done a good job, and their coach gets plucked away.
Right. But their primary focus is and always has been and always will be academics, mm-hmm. and that makes your recruiting pool very difficult.
Yeah.
To draw upon, and so it kind of limits your success in a lot of ways, and
it puts a ceiling on you for sure.
Absolutely. And then when you start adding in other teams that have been kind of traditional powers in their respective places and don't have quite those restrictions, it's going to be a gauntlet. It's going to be tough.
We shall see. Interesting times, and obviously just looking forward to the game. That's the thing about it, is we're a week away, and the nice part is here on the station, we're going to have both the famous Idaho Potato Bowl and the Las Vegas Bowl for you on the zone. So tune in for that. It'll be a nice Saturday full of football for you as the Utes and the Aggies finish up their seasons. All right, coming up next, we get to 5 minutes of talking about some of the other topics we have not had a chance to touch on quite yet. This is the Saturday Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm just going to say it. This is the GOAT of Christmas songs. I don't care what people say. Mariah nailed it with this one. You got to look on your face like I think you're thinking I'm crazy.
I still personally think it's Nat King Cole's Chestnuts Roasting.
It's a good one. Christmas song.
Yeah. To me, that's the epitome of Christmas, but I get it. This was just such a commercial success.
It's Mariah. Come on.
See, my Scrooge of a host, this is like the only, just because he loves Mariah, this is like the only song he's okay with.
Jake Scott he's only okay with this song, really.
That is hysterically funny. I never would have taken Jake Scott for a Mariah Carey fan.
And he's a Swiftie? Who would have thought?
I think that's more recent than anything else.
I can dig
it's
it.
So interesting to me.
I can dig it. I am neither really a Mariah fan or a Taylor Swift fan. I don't dislike either of them, but I'm just not like, oh my gosh.
You mean you're not dropping thousands of dollars to go to support the soon-to-be billionaire if she's not already billionaire in Taylor Swift?
No. I'll just, probably.
You're not going to go sit through a 3-hour concert movie in theaters?
No.
Really?
No.
I'm kidding.
No.
I'm the same way.
I'm much more of a Beyonce girl, and I won't even watch Beyonce's movies. So.
Why do you need to watch a movie of a concert you've already been to? But that's my question.
Well, I think it's for the people who weren't able to go to the concert more so.
Yeah, but it seemed like more people went that had already been dropping major coin to go to said concert to watch it a second time. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway.
Fun times. All right. Other topics we still need to talk about today. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the Pac-12, Michelle. Now, The appeal yesterday from the 10 schools exiting the conference yesterday was rejected by the Court of Appeals. It had been appealed to. So therefore, the lower court ruling, which essentially hands full control of the Pac-12, its assets, and the decision-making process moving forward, resides with the Pac-2, speaking of Oregon State and Washington State. Now, this means that in theory, the Beavers and the Cougars control what some estimate maybe as much as $400 million in assets.
Good for them. I do wonder, though, lower court. So, I mean, we're probably going to see this upped, would be my guess.
We'll
or
see.
Is that possible?
So the lower court ruling did say when they initially ruled in favor of Washington and Oregon State, it did say in there they need to make decisions that essentially are in good faith.
Yeah.
Like, not to be vindictive towards the exiting 10, even though I'm sure there's some thought on those two's part that they're like, yeah, bleep you all. And
well,
and we get it. Like,
I get it. I get it. Now, some of the teams that are leaving didn't want to more than others.
Yes, Utah did not want to leave.
But yes, I get it. I get it.
So the question I had, because here's the thing, if they start acting in bad faith, that's when I think it gets appealed back up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like in theory, what Washington State and Oregon State could do now is they could tell the other 10 schools, pound sand, you're not getting a dime of the money that you think you're getting out of us.
Right.
We're controlling it all. And then they could go out essentially and start rebuilding the Pac, whatever they want it to be conference. They could pick off the San Diego States, the Fresno States, from the Pac, from the Mountain West. They could go maybe pick off a couple from the AAC and recreate a conference as they see it and use, like I said, some people say it's up to $400 million to do that. They can pay the buyouts for these schools and rebuild it that way. I'm interested to see where all of this goes.
Yeah.
Because I've got to think that those two schools are like, y'all left us out to dry. Why in the you-know-what do we want to help any of y'all, and why should you guys expect a dime from us?
I mean, that would not surprise me in the slightest. And again, I get it. I so get it. And I so think it's wrong that those two schools didn't get picked up anywhere.
Sure.
But I'm not the one in charge of all of this decision making.
Yeah.
I should be, but I'm not. So, I feel for them, and this feels like a big win for those two schools. I think there probably is a balance of making sure that you take care of yourselves without being vindictive, and perhaps crossing that line. But this is just kind of one of those things. I think we're probably going to be watching it for at least another year, if not longer. I think there's going to be some twists and turns here.
I think you're right in that. I am curious what the two schools are thinking what they're going to do, because they already have that scheduling agreement with Mountain West next year. I believe we saw Utah State yesterday actually will make a trip to Washington State next year as part of that scheduling agreement. And there's some thought of me that why don't you guys essentially take those assets and just kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say join the Mountain West, but join forces with them and make the best of your situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You have a bunch of assets that could obviously help like you said, help establish yourselves, but also help establish the Mountain West, maybe more prominence. I'm just interested to see where the future goes, because this is conference realignment. It's messy. It's super messy. It sucks that the Pac-12 is going away. I got PK. He's got 45 years of having watched it growing up. He grew up in Arizona when the Arizona schools joined the conference. He's watched it all that time. He worked in LA. Like he's worked here. It's his baby. It's gone away. And I know that Utah fans really, really enjoyed is it 13 seasons all told in the Pac-12? And you went 2 Pac-12 titles. You went to 4 straight Pac-12 title games. Like, there is so much good history there that it's literally just kind of being tossed to the side. Yeah. And it's like, wow, where did all that go?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to see something like that go. And I know that there is that faction of, we'll move on and just be grateful that and I think people are, but like, it's really, really rough to have something that you work so hard to build and be torn away like that. And granted, again, we can go into there's a lot of you did it to yourselves. There were also people that helped push you off the cliff. There was some backstabbing. Like it was like watching an episode of The Real Housewives. Like that's what conference realignment is in 2023.
I've seen exactly one episode of A Real Housewives. I watched the premiere of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Finished it. Me and my wife looked at each other and said, "Nah." But I get what you're talking about. Like, a bunch of it is drama that in some ways either was contrived or was forced from the outside.
Self-inflicted.
Yeah, self-inflicted at times too, yes.
It had it all. It had all the drama. All of it.
It did. And it's crazy to think it's going away, but I don't know. It's so weird. And by the way, I'm going to give a tip of the cap to the Big 12. Like, if you can't have Big 12 Media Days in Dallas, Vegas is a great spot.
I mean, this does raise a question, though. Does everything ultimately eventually get moved to Vegas? I get the centrality part of it, but at the same time, some of the moves that Your Marks made has been a little showboaty. And where is more showboaty than Las Vegas?
Bingo. Come
right?
On. It fits Your Marks' vision for the Big 12 to a T. Like, okay, here's the thing. Kansas City, fine place. You compare Kansas City and Vegas? No, and this is my West Coast bias rolling in, where I can drive to Vegas, have to fly to Kansas City, have to fly to Dallas, Fort Worth. Like Vegas to me is like, yeah, the Pac-12 is exiting there.
Yeah.
Why don't you move in and just encroach on that territory and make it your own? I know it's on the western flank of the conference. We get all that. But here's the thing. There are a few airports that have like direct flights from literally everywhere. Mm-hmm. Well, is it Harry Reid International now? It's no longer McCarran. I think they renamed it.
I think it is Harry Reid.
Yeah,
whatever.
But they have flights from everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you're in West Virginia. I don't care if you're in Ames, Iowa. I don't care if you're in Orlando, Florida, or wherever you are in this new Big 12. You can get a flight to Las Vegas.
Yeah. Well, and this might sound really mean, but reality is, I think more of the western flank of the conference is going to be the one that benefits from that anyways.
Sure.
And I'm not even solely talking about Utah. I'm thinking about, Kansas has been pretty good. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma State always has a chance. Mm-hmm. It's not just Utah and Arizona. It just feels like that western half is set up to be better than the eastern half anyway.
Don't
come after me.
I literally just saw this. So Tim Fitzgerald, he covers Kansas State, Life of Fitz on Twitter. He does it for 24/7 Sports. So not sure if you saw this, but next summer's Big 12 Media Days event before football season will be in Las Vegas. I owe it to K-State Nation to provide the most in-depth coverage possible. Days be damned, I am covering the Big 12 Media Week. Some guy responds. Literally, I'm just saying this as you were talking. Yeah. Some guy responds, "Way to go, Big 12. Vegas? Really? I didn't know UNLV joined the conference." It's not about UNLV.
No.
It fits to your point.
It seems to fit Your Marks' vision for the conference.
It gives you a huge stage. It's got the glitz, the glam. It's got everything that Brett Your Mark is about.
Entertainment.
Yeah.
Out the know what.
They're saying they're going to have it at they're deciding between the Sphere, Allegiant, or one of the MGM resorts.
Oh, he's going to make the Sphere happen. You know that's what's going to happen.
There's going to be the new Big 12, because apparently they're going to rebrand the Big 12 next year.
Yeah.
The Big 12 logo is going to be all over that Sphere. Come on.
I get it. I get it, man. And here's the thing. I don't really love a lot of what Your Mark's doing. It's just not for me. But in the grand scheme of what he's trying to do, Vegas for everything just fits the bill. Yeah. It just does. I'm sorry. Sure. But I'm also not sorry, because that's just what it is.
Yeah. It's just it fits so well with what just kind of seems like the direction he's pushing this conference. Mm-hmm. We'll see. you got an opportunity. Like, and Vegas is building something, like sports-wise.
Well, and that's just it, too. I think Vegas is really trying to turn into kind of an upper-class sports community.
It's on its way.
You're watching, I think the 90s and the 2000s were really about, like, the showgirls and, like, the sex appeal and all that kind of stuff. That's, like, what they built their brand on. And now they're trying to clean that up. And what better way to clean that up than make it a sports town? You bring in sports betting. You kind of move away from some of the other betting that's out there. You bring in
casinos will always be a part of it, but yeah.
The kind of big residency shows. You're just trying to bring in high-class clients, whether it's, from the entertainment industry or whether it's from the sports industry, and have it be like a big mashup conglomerate of where everybody goes and hangs out and just does really, like, glitzy, glammy things.
It's an entertainment.
It is.
It's entertainment, and sports is part of that. There's no doubt about that. Other thing real quick before we go here, Michelle, NFL this weekend, we got 3 games today. We already have one underway. Vikings leading the Bengals 7-3 in Cincinnati. If you're planning on watching any of these, hope you have the NFL Network because all 3 of them are on there. I actually really like how the NFL, the NFL controls everything.
Oh,
but it's genius what they're doing. Like, okay, we have a Saturday where bowl games are just kicking off and they're kind of lower level. Yeah, we're going to put 3 games, triple header, go.
Yeah.
Like, we're putting a game on Black Friday. Like, they are the NFL, for everything that they do that seems out of touch, and they know what they're doing when it comes to dominating the sports conversation.
Right.
They have games in high-profile windows, and they're taking advantage of it. You got Steelers-Colts coming up this afternoon, and then Broncos-Lions. Each of these games have intrigue because the Vikings and the Bengals 7-6 battling for their playoff lives here in the final stretch of the season. Steelers Colts, similar situation, and then by the way, Broncos against all odds are above 500.
Yeah.
That's sad to say, but here's the thing: the Kansas City Chiefs have the Denver Broncos nipping at their heels,
right?
Which is crazy to consider, but that's what we're looking at. We had the Raiders absolute. I don't know. Did you watch Thursday Night Football?
I didn't.
I watched the first half.
Doing?
It was 42.
Anyway.
It was 42-0 at halftime, Michelle. You didn't miss anything.
Oh.
The Raiders laid 63 points on the Chargers. It was 63-21 the final, and it wasn't even that close.
Wait, the Raiders put up that many points.
4 days after the Raiders lost a game to the Minnesota Vikings 3-0 in Las Vegas. They remained at home. The Chargers came in and got boat raced to the tune of 63-21. 2 records were set in that game, Michelle. The most points ever scored in Raiders history in a game.
Yeah.
And the most points ever given up by the Los Angeles Chargers in franchise history. And, oh, by the way, the next day, Tom Telesco, the GM for the Chargers, as well as their head coach, I don't remember what's his name. They both got fired. They cleaned house.
Jeez. Gosh, this has been a weird year for NFL because what was it? The Dolphins and Broncos had that absurd score too.
Yep.
Like, I twice in a single season having
60-point games, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
The NFL wants parity, and they're getting parity, but there's some of these games that they're getting more college type scores sometimes.
Yeah.
Which you have the whole Tom Brady thing with him saying, "Well, it's a dumbed down version of the NFL I played." It's like, Tom,
shut up, Tom. You
stop
benefited from so much.
You went to 10 Super Bowls, won 7 of them against this essentially what is playing right now because
like
you
the
just retired.
The softest branch of
you just retired
thing.
Last year.
Yeah,
like come on now. It's just, but at the same time, it's been an interesting season because I think we have more quarterbacks have played this year than at any point in NFL history, which is crazy to consider. It happened because the Chargers started Easton Stick because.
Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert broke his finger. He's done for the season.
Jeez.
So it's
what a mess.
Yeah,
what a mess.
It's been kind of a wild NFL year, and I'm interested to see where it all goes. This is the 3 weeks beyond this, and the playoffs start. Some very interesting storylines have emerged, and I think they will continue to emerge. Because by the way, we have a jumbled mess. I think in the AFC, if I'm not mistaken, there's 4 or 5 teams at 7-6.
Oh my gosh.
Like there's it's the fight like. What the NFL wants is they want races down the stretch in terms of you win here, like and they're getting that. It's setting up that way. But then you also have some of these outliers where the Raiders, 4 days after they were shut out at home, they put up 63 on a division rival.
I just, Raiders gonna do what Raiders gonna do.
No doubt. All right, crazy times. All right, we will close up shop next. Give you some final thoughts. Wrap up this edition of the Saturday Show. It's all coming up on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells swing and jingle bells ring. Snowing and blowing up bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun.
Sarah, okay, Sarah, right before we came back, said this song will forever remind her of Mean Girls. And I hadn't even thought about that connection in years, and it just brought me right back. Here's the thing. Mean Girls, incredible movie.
It is pretty funny.
Super quotable. Still relevant to this day, despite like it being a different generation.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Sarah.
She doesn't even go here.
Somebody was talking. I literally saw that meme pop up the other day about something. It was just an incredible movie. Just so. That's Sarah. That was awesome. It's for Mean Girl.
Did you see they're making a new one?
Oh, don't.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they've already made some new ones.
What's her name? Oh gosh, what's the main character? The redhead.
Oh, Katie Herring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or are you talking about her real name?
Her real name.
Lindsay
Lohan. Yeah, Lindsay Lohan. Why couldn't I think of it?
Well, I'm trying to get like which way you're going with the character name.
She's like the principal of the school or something.
Oh, lovely.
And there's like a new set of plastics. Anyways, and like now they're moms and they have daughters of their own. It's going to be interesting.
Well, it could either be great or not great, so we will see.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think there's room for middle ground on this.
No, there's not, and I'm sad to say that as most things go in Hollywood, it'll probably be a flop.
Yeah, probably will not be good.
Considering that, man, talk about that first movie. It was absolutely incredible.
It was.
No doubt. All right, well, that's not how I anticipated wrapping up the show, but Mean Girls, man. Uber quotable. My wife, to this day, like with our kids, but the other day my daughter was saying something about, and my wife's like, I'm a cool mom. And I just started busting up.
I say that all the time now. Like, because I have this, I like asking athletes what they're like listening to.
Sure.
And it's because I'm like now kind of on the verge of being old enough to be their mom. I'm like, because I'm a cool mom, not a regular mom.
My wife said it, and I just started busting up. My daughter looked over me like, why are you laughing at that comment? That's not that funny.
Yeah, that's not that funny. Just wait. Give it a few years. We will show you Mean Girls, and you will get it.
Oh, so good, so good. All right, Michelle. Any final thoughts from you?
Get to the Huntsman Center and then rush home and turn on your TV and watch women's basketball.
Yeah. So, by the way, I got to give props to the women's hoops team for Utah.
Yeah.
To be willing to go to Southern Utah, that's pretty impressive stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because too often these days, we see in men's sports all the time, like, we ain't going there.
Right. Right. Yeah, you're going to come to us. No. Really cool that they're heading out on the road, obviously. Great game against South Carolina. Didn't go the way that they wanted to, but, oh, man, the accolades rolling in for Alyssa Peely after that one.
Well, she's just absolutely incredible.
She is incredible.
Like,
and I'm glad that everybody else is starting to figure that out.
Well, and that game last week, the showcase, the environment it was in, it put her on like even more people's radars. Like, hold on, this girl's really, really good. Yeah. It's like, yeah, we know that. If you pay attention, like you would have picked up on. But nonetheless, so be it. But it is good to see what's going on now. Yeah. So is it a 2:00 and a 5:00? Are those two starts?
Yes.
And then we have BYU basketball at 7. They're taking on Georgia State. They should push the record to what would be 12-1 at that point. And then also at 2:00 here on the Zone, we have Utah State. They're over at the Delta Center. They're taking on USF, the Dons from the West Coast Conference. Originally, this game was going to be radio only, but they have now set up a stream where Scotty's voice is going to be both on the stream and on the radio. So,
good old Scotty G.
So, tune into that. It'll be a 1:30 pregame here on the KSL Sports Zone. So tune into that. And obviously Jazz tonight as well. By the way, Taylon Horton-Tucker is questionable. Omer Yurtsevin is out. So the flu bug, sickness bug is making its run through the Jazz like it did for the Utes at the tail end of the Utes season.
So fun.
Yeah, good times. All right. That's going to do it. You have any other things we need to know before we go?
No.
Okay. Well, Michelle's off to Vegas midweek next week, so we will have her join us from Vegas on next week's Saturday show, get her thoughts ahead of that game in the Las Vagas Bowl. But tune in all week long. We'll have plenty of coverage getting you ready for those games, both the famous Idaho Potato Bowl and the Las Vegas Bowl. So for Michelle and Sarah, I'm Jake. Have a great rest of your day. This has been the Saturday show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.